Every house, every king, and every battle has its own truth. But there are stories older than crowns, darker than the night, and more dangerous than any blade. They were never written in books. They were whispered to fire, to the trees, and to the dead gods. And today, we dare to uncover one of them. The wind off the narrow sea carried the scent of salt and ash that morning, the breath of Dragonstone itself. Its black cliffs rose from the mist like the spine of some sleeping beast, the waves breaking hard against their feet as if the sea itself were trying to claim the island back. The castle above, forged of dragonfire and shadow, loomed against the pale dawn, its towers shaped like talons and wings. Within those walls, the blood of old Valyria still flowed, the blood of dragons. Prince Balon Targaryen, the Spring Prince, stood upon the eastern battlements, his silver hair whipped wild by the wind. He wore no crown and bore no sigil, save the three-headed dragon that gleamed upon his chestplate. The prince was young still, but his gaze was steady as the dragon he commanded, Vhagar, who slept somewhere upon the smoking slopes of the Dragonmont below. Behind him came the soft tread of boots upon stone. His sister, Princess Alyssa, approached with her cloak drawn close against the chill. Her hair, silver gold like his, shone faintly in the dim light, and her violet eyes carried the spark of mischief that had never quite left her, even after 3 years at court in King's Landing. "Still brooding over father's summons?" she asked, her tone teasing but kind. Balon gave a thin smile. "Brooding, aye. It is said the Dragonmont stirs. Smoke by night, tremors by day. The Meisters whisper of new hatchlings. New dragons?" Alyssa's eyes brightened, but Balon's frown only deepened. "Or something worse," he said. "There are tales that a rider was seen, a man cloaked in red with hair pale as ours. Yet no rider has been granted the king's leave to take a dragon from the mount in months. Whoever he is, he does not serve our father." At that, Alyssa's expression grew cautious. "You think it's true?" Balon turned toward the sea. "Father would not have summoned us both if it were false." A raven had arrived at dawn from King's Landing, bearing the king's seal, and a command. The rogue dragon rider was to be found. The peace of the realm depended on it. Within the hour, the siblings were on their way to the Great Hall. The corridors of Dragonstone echoed with the weight of their steps and the distant, guttural rumble that came from the depths, dragons shifting in their sleep. Torches sputtered as they passed beneath the high, vaulted ceilings carved in the likeness of beasts long vanished from the world. King Jaehaerys the Warren Targaryen, the old king, awaited them upon his throne of black stone. Age had silvered his beard, but his eyes were sharp still, the eyes of a ruler who had seen kingdoms rise and burn. Beside him sat good Queen Alysanne, serene as ever, though her hands were folded tight in her lap. "You have heard the rumors," the king began without preamble. "A dragon stirs in secret, one not bound to our house by law or right. The creature was seen flying above Driftmark by night, pale, small, yet strong. And its rider..." His voice dropped. "His rider bears our blood." Balon exchanged a glance with Alyssa. "Our blood." The king nodded. "The small folk speak of a ghost. They say a Targaryen who perished in the fire of Summerhall yet lives. But such tales are dangerous. If true, it is treason. If false, it is madness. And madness in our line is never far." Queen Alysanne leaned forward. "We cannot send soldiers. The dragon riders of Dragonstone must handle this quietly." "And so you will go," said the king. "You, Balon, with your sister beside you. The mount is restless, the people fearful. Find the rider, learn the truth, And if it is a foe, end it before the realm burns." Silence fell. Only the sea could be heard, roaring faintly through the open windows. At last, Balon knelt. "By my blood and by the flame, I swear it will be done." That night, beneath a sky strewn with stars, the siblings prepared for the journey into the mountain's heart. Alyssa saddled her young dragon Silverwing, sleek and silver as moonlight. Balon, his armor glinting faintly in the firelight, called for Vagar, whose roar shook the night. From the cavernous mouth of the Dragonmont, steam rose in veils. The path wound downward into darkness, through tunnels lined with obsidian and old bones. The air grew hot, heavy with the scent of sulfur. "Do you feel it?" Alyssa whispered. "It's like the mountain's alive." "It is alive," Balon said quietly. "And if the stories are true, someone means to wake it fully." As they descended, a strange light flickered from below, red and gold, like fire through smoke. The roar of dragons echoed faintly from deep within. Yet mingled with that sound came something else, a voice, distant and ragged, crying words neither of them could quite catch. Then came a crash, like thunder beneath the earth, and the ground shuddered under their feet. Balon seized Alyssa's hand. "Back!" he cried. "The mountain's breaking!" The tunnel split apart in a storm of heat and smoke. Through the fissure, Balon glimpsed it, a dragon unlike any he had seen before. Its scales were pale as bone, its eyes burning crimson. Upon its back rode a figure cloaked in red, hair white as frost, face hidden behind a half-mask of black steel. Their eyes met for the briefest instant, and in that heartbeat, Balon knew the truth. This was no stranger. This was family. Then the creature roared, and the mountain answered, hurling fire into the dark. The hunt for the rogue dragon rider had begun. Smoke hung heavy over Dragonstone at dawn. The mountain still groaned from the quake, thin tendrils of steam coiling from the cracks in its black slopes. The air itself felt uneasy, as though the island were holding its breath. Balon stood at the edge of the smoldering fissure, his armor streaked with soot, his hair damp with sweat. Behind him, Silverwing stirred restlessly, her wings twitching against the rising heat. Alyssa sat astride her dragon's back, face pale in the early light, eyes fixed upon the dark mouth of the mountain. "He was real," she whispered. "I saw him too. The mask, the hair." Balon nodded grimly. "Targaryen hair, no doubt of it." "And the dragon?" she went on, almost to herself. "White as bone, smaller than yours or mother's Silverwing, but fierce, like it knew us." "It looked at me as if I were a stranger," Balon said, "and yet there was something familiar in its gaze. It obeyed him." He turned toward the mountain. "Whoever that rider is, he has raised a dragon in secret, one that bends only to him. Such a thing has not happened since the doom of Valyria." Alyssa shivered. "Father must be told." "Father sent us to stop him quietly," Balon reminded her. "If we fail, the court will know soon enough, but if we succeed, only we need bear this knowledge." He placed a hand on Vagar's flank, feeling the ancient dragon's muscles shift beneath the scales. "We'll hunt from above. If the rogue has made a lair within the mountain, he cannot hide from the sky." The morning rose bright and cruel. 2 dragons took to the air, Silverwing glimmering like a streak of moonlight, and Vagar vast and dark as thunderclouds. The air beat heavy with the power of their wings. From the heights, they saw the mountain smoking, its flanks torn open in places where molten rock glowed faintly red. Balon guided Vagar in a wide circle. Below, the shadows of the dragons rippled across the sea. "He could have fled," Alyssa called through the wind. He might be halfway to Driftmark by now. Or deeper within, Balon said. The mountain has tunnels that go farther than men remember, perhaps even beneath the sea itself. Hours passed as they searched. The sun burned white, the sea flashed silver, and still there was no sign, until Vhagar gave a sudden growl that rumbled through Balon's bones. The old dragon tilted her head sharply toward a cliff face that shimmered oddly in the light. "There!" Balon shouted. He dove, the wind shrieking past his ears. Alyssa followed close, her dragon's cry echoing against the rock. The cliff was not stone but glass, black, polished smooth, and cut through by a faint crimson glow. Balon swung down from his saddle and pressed his hand to it. Warm. Alive. Obsidian, he murmured, shaped by dragonfire. "Then the rogue has been here," Alyssa said. A narrow opening yawned at the base of the glassy wall, just wide enough for a man to slip through. Without hesitation, Balon drew his sword, a Valyrian blade named Dark Sister, its edge catching the faint red light. "Stay close." The passage beyond wound downward into the dark, the walls slick and gleaming. The air stank of sulfur and burnt flesh. Somewhere ahead, a faint sound echoed, the clink of chains, the hiss of flame. They moved in silence, the only light the faint glow from cracks in the walls. Then came the voices, low, murmuring, and unmistakably human. Balon motioned for stillness and crept forward. Through a break in the tunnel, he saw a vast cavern lit by fire pits. 3 men stood before a pool of molten rock. At their center was the figure in red, the masked rider. His cloak was scorched at the edges, his white hair spilling down his shoulders. In his hands he held a small, trembling creature, a dragon hatchling, pale and raw-scaled. The others knelt. "It lives, my prince," one whispered. "Good," the rider said. His voice was smooth, but it carried a strange echo, like wind in a hollow hall. "This one will grow faster than the last. The blood of the mountain feeds them well." "My prince," said one of the men, hesitant. "If the king learns—" "The king will not learn," the rider snapped. "He has forgotten the old ways, the true bond between dragon and rider. He would chain our kind with laws and master's oaths. But I will restore what was lost. Fire unbound. Blood pure." Balon's heart thudded. The voice, muffled though it was, struck him with sudden recognition. He stepped back, breath caught in his throat. "Alyssa," he whispered. "It cannot be." But she had already seen it too. "Balon. That voice. It sounds like—" A shadow passed over them. From the darkness above, the pale dragon emerged, the same creature they had seen before, crawling along the ceiling like some great serpent. Its crimson eyes flared. "Run!" Balon hissed, but it was too late. The creature dropped from the rock with a shriek, wings snapping wide. The cavern erupted in chaos. The masked rider whirled, his eyes catching the torchlight. "Intruders!" Flame roared across the chamber. Balon threw himself over Alyssa as fire swept the walls, scorching the stone. Vhagar's roar answered from outside, and the mountain trembled again. Balon rose, sword in hand, his cloak aflame at the edges. "Show your face," he shouted. "If you are Targaryen, prove your honor." The masked rider turned slowly, as if savoring the moment. "Honor," he said softly, "a word for fools." Then he removed the mask. Beneath it was a face Balon had seen only in portraits. The high brow, the pale eyes, the cruel curve of the mouth. A prince who had perished long ago, or so the histories claimed. "Prince Aemon." Alyssa's voice trembled. "But you're dead." "Dead?" The man smiled faintly. So said my brother Jaehaerys when he claimed my birthright. Yet here I stand, forgotten, betrayed, and reborn in flame. Baelin's grip tightened on Dark Sister. You lie. Aemon died before I was born. Did he? Aemon's gaze was cold. The king's word makes truth of any lie. He stole my crown, my legacy, my dragons, but no more. The blood of Valyria answers to me now. Behind him, the pale dragon hissed, wings spreading wide. Balin stepped forward. You are no king, he said. You are a ghost playing at fire. Perhaps, said Aemon softly, but ghosts burn too. He raised his hand, and the pale dragon unleashed its fire. The cavern filled with white flame. Balon swung Dark Sister, steel meeting heat, while Alyssa called out to Silverwing. The young dragon burst through the tunnel's roof, crashing down in a storm of wings and smoke. The ground split. Lava spilled like blood across the floor. When the fire cleared, the rogue rider was gone, vanished into the mountain's depths. Only his laughter remained, echoing faintly through the tunnels like the whisper of a dying flame. Balin lowered his sword, chest heaving. He lives, he said, and now he knows we do as well. Alyssa looked toward the smoke-filled fissure where he had vanished. Then the game begins, and high above, the peak of the Dragonmont bled red light into the sky, as though some ancient heart had begun to beat once more. The day after the mountain's eruption, Dragonstone lay cloaked in silence. The sea had turned gray and restless, and the air smelled of brimstone. No birds sang upon the cliffs. Even the dragons were uneasy. In the courtyard, Balin and Alyssa stood before their father's banner, its three-headed dragon stirring faintly in the breeze as they prepared for the journey to King's Landing. The truth weighed heavy upon them, heavier than their armor. Prince Aemon Targaryen, the king's elder brother, long thought dead in an accident at sea, lived still. And worse, he now commanded a dragon born in secret flame. Balin strapped Dark Sister to his side. He called himself Reborn, he said. Reborn through fire. The mountain was his crucible. Alyssa fastened her cloak. He spoke of betrayal. He blames father. He blames the crown, Balin corrected. And that makes him dangerous. If he means to claim his birthright, there will be war. She turned to him, her expression uncertain. Do we tell father everything? The dragon, the hatchlings, his words? Balon hesitated. We tell him what he must know, but not all. If word of Aemon spreads, it will not stop at the Red Keep. The lords will whisper. Some might even remember their loyalty to him. Alyssa nodded grimly. Then let us hope our tongues are wiser than our swords. They took wing before noon, Vhagar and Silverwing soaring over the open sea. The wind was sharp, the air cold. Below them stretched the endless blue, flecked with whitecaps and the distant sails of traders fleeing the island's fury. For hours they flew in silence until the black towers of Dragonstone shrank to a shadow behind them. King's Landing rose before dusk, a city of smoke and stone sprawling along the Blackwater Rush. Its walls glimmered red in the fading sun, and atop Aegon's Hill the Red Keep caught the light like a crown of embers. As they descended, the city's clamor rose to meet them. Bells, voices, the creak of ships along the docks. The small folk looked up in awe and fear as the dragons passed overhead, wings casting long shadows across the cobbled streets. They landed in the dragon pit, the great domed cavern echoing with the roars of beasts. Stable hands and keepers bowed deeply, their eyes wide. One dared to speak. My prince, my princess, we thought the mountain had taken you. Balin dismounted, brushing soot from his cloak. The mountain may try again yet, he said. See to the dragons. They are weary from the flight. When they entered the Red Keep, word had already reached the king. Jaehaerys awaited them in the council chamber, his face grave. The lords of his small council sat in uneasy silence. Lord Baratheon, Lord Valerian, the Grand Maester, and the hand of the king, Septon Barth. Balon bowed. "Your Grace." "Rise, my son," said Jaehaerys. "Tell me what you found." Balon chose his words carefully. He spoke of the tremors, the fire, the tunnels beneath the Dragonmont, of the pale dragon and its mysterious rider. Yet when he came to the truth of the man's face, he faltered. "It was no stranger," he said at last. "The rider bore our features. He claimed to be of our blood." The lord stirred. "Another Targaryen?" Valerian asked sharply. "From where?" Balon did not answer. The king's gaze hardened. "Who was he?" Balon lifted his eyes. He named himself Aemon. The silence that followed was thick as stone. Septon Barth drew a slow breath. "Aemon. The prince drowned 40 years past. His ship was found shattered near Lys. There were witnesses. There were lies," Balon said quietly. Jaehaerys' hands tightened on the arm of his throne. "If what you say is true, then my brother has returned from death itself. But how? And why now?" "He spoke of restoring the old ways," Balon said. "Of fire unbound and blood pure. He has a dragon raised in secret, and he means to claim more." Lord Valerian rose sharply. "If the realm hears this, they will not," the king said, voice cutting like a blade. "This matter remains within this hall." His eyes turned to Balon and Alyssa. "You will say nothing of this beyond these walls, not to your kin, not to the court, not even to your mother." "But father," Alyssa began. "Enough," said Jaehaerys. "If Aemon has returned, then I will deal with him. You have done your duty. Now leave this burden to me." Balon bowed stiffly, though unease lingered in his heart. That night, long after the torches had dimmed, Balon could not sleep. The Red Keep felt colder than Dragonstone, its halls too quiet. From his chamber he watched the city lights flicker along the river, and he thought of the mountain's heartbeat, of the laughter that had followed them through the tunnels. A soft knock broke his thoughts. Alyssa slipped inside, her face pale in the moonlight. "He knows," she said. "Father knew the moment you spoke the name." Balon turned to her. "Knew?" She nodded. "I overheard Septon Barth after we left. The king's brother Aemon did not drown at sea. He was sent away, exiled after a quarrel that nearly ended in blood." "Exiled?" Balon whispered. "By father?" Alyssa's eyes glistened. By both him and mother. Aemon's mind had turned. He was said to have visions, voices calling from the fire. He spoke of dragons greater than any alive, sleeping beneath the earth. They feared he would bring ruin if he remained. Balon's hands clenched. And now he returns with fire indeed. Alyssa looked toward the window. "Do you think father will tell the realm the truth?" He shook his head. "No. He will smother it in silence, but silence cannot hold forever." As if in answer, a sound rose faintly from the distance, a cry high and terrible. The dragons within the pit below the city stirred, their roars trembling through the stone. Balon and Alyssa stared at one another. "That's not one of ours," she whispered. The cry came again, sharper, closer, a sound like steel raking across glass. Outside, the sky flared briefly red, as if fire had bloomed among the stars. Balon reached for his sword. "He's here." They ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing through the keep. Guards shouted in confusion. By the time they reached the battlements, half the court had gathered. Lords, servants, even the Grand Maester, all staring upward. Above the city, wreathed in smoke, a pale dragon circled like a ghost of flame. Its wings were torn at the edges, its scales glimmering white against the dark. Upon its back rode a figure cloaked in red. A voice carried down through the night, strong and cold. "Brother!" Jaehaerys himself appeared upon the balcony, his cloak whipping in the wind. "Aemon!" he called, his voice echoing over the rooftops. "If you are truly my blood, come down and speak." "I will speak," came the answer, "but not here, in this nest of liars. Come to Dragonstone, alone, and learn what your silence has begotten." With that, the pale dragon wheeled and vanished into the night. The city was left in stunned quiet. Smoke drifted across the moon. Balon turned to his father. "You cannot go," he said. "It's a trap." Jaehaerys looked out toward the sea, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps, but if I do not go, the trap will come to me." He turned away, the torchlight flickering upon his silver hair. "Prepare the dragons," he said softly. "The bonds of the dragon are tested again." And in that moment, Balon knew. The peace his father had built was cracking like thin ice, and beneath it burned the fire of war. The dawn that followed was blood red, the sky veined with streaks of copper and gold that turned the walls of the Red Keep to fire. The city below awoke uneasy. Fishermen swore they had seen a pale dragon wheeling above Blackwater Bay through the night, and the bells of the sept rang not for prayer, but warning. In the council chamber, the king's voice was calm, though his eyes betrayed the storm behind them. "He called me brother before the court," Jaehaerys said. "The tale will spread before the sun sets. There is no silencing this now." Septon Barth's hands trembled as he laid a scroll upon the table. "Your Grace, the maesters already whisper of Aemon returned. If he commands a dragon, the lords will question which bloodline is true, yours or his." Balon stood behind the king's chair, jaw tight. "Then let them question. Words cannot wound dragons." The king turned to him, weary yet resolute. "And yet words start wars, my son. Fire alone cannot rule a realm." He rose from his seat. "I will go to Dragonstone, as he commanded, but not alone. You will come with me." Balon inclined his head. "As you command." "And you, Alyssa," said Jaehaerys, turning to where his daughter stood by the window. "You will remain here with your mother. Should I not return—" "You will return," she interrupted fiercely. "He may wear your face, father, but you are the dragon who sits the throne." The king smiled faintly, the ghost of pride crossing his features. "Then pray the gods grant your faith wings." Before the sun reached its height, they set out. Balon rode Vagar, her vast wings black against the sky. Jaehaerys rode Vermithor, bronze and immense, the oldest of the living dragons. From the battlements, Alyssa watched them rise together, their shadows crossing the city and fading eastward into the haze. For long hours they flew above the sea. The wind was cold, the water restless beneath them. Neither spoke. Only when Dragonstone came into view, that black crown rising from the mist, did Jaehaerys finally break the silence. "When I was young," he said, "Aemon and I were as one soul in two bodies. He was the bolder, I the cautious. I loved him more than any brother should, and yet I cast him away." "You did what you must," Balon said, "if he was touched by madness. Madness and greatness are the same coin in our line," the king replied. "It is the toss that decides how we are remembered." The mountain awaited them, smoke wreathing its peak. They circled once, searching for the pale dragon, but the air was still. Jaehaerys guided Vermithor down to the same fissure where Balon had first seen the rogue rider. The stone was scorched, the air hot and dry. They dismounted, the dragons crouching watchful behind them. Jaehaerys moved forward with the deliberate grace of age and experience, his crown left behind in the Red Keep. "If he means parley, he will show himself," he said. "If he means war, then let him learn why the conqueror's blood endures." The tunnel swallowed them whole. The heat deepened, and the light dimmed until only the faint glow of molten rock lit their path. Then came a voice, smooth and mocking. "You came, brother. I did not think you would." Aemon stepped from the shadows, his red cloak hanging loose around his shoulders. He no longer wore the mask. His face was pale as ivory, his hair long and silver, eyes burning with feverish light. "I would know why you hide behind deceit," Jaehaerys said, "why you stir the mountain to rage." "I hide?" Aemon laughed softly. "It was you who buried my name, my deeds, my very life. You told the world I drowned, when it was you who cast me into exile. Did you think fire would forget me?" "You were dangerous," said the king. "Your dreams turned to delusion. You spoke of waking dragons that should sleep forever." "And now they wake," Aemon said, spreading his hands. "The mountain bleeds fire again, brother. The world trembles, as it did in the days of old Valyria. I have found what our forebears lost." Balon stepped forward, dark sister gleaming in his grasp. "You speak of destruction, of death. There is no glory in ruin." Aemon's gaze shifted to him. "Ah, the Spring Prince. You have your father's courage, but none of his vision. Tell me, nephew, what do you think binds our house? It is not law. It is not peace. It is blood. Dragon's blood. And blood calls for fire." "Then you have lost yourself to it," Balon said. Aemon smiled. "Have I? Or have I found the truth while the rest of you cower behind your throne?" He raised his hand, and from the darkness behind him came a roar that shook the stone. The pale dragon emerged, larger now, its wings rimmed with fire. Jaehaerys' voice was low. "You would raise your dragon against your king?" "I would raise it against a usurper," Aemon hissed. Then the world erupted in flame. Balon barely had time to throw himself aside as the pale dragon's fire struck the tunnel mouth, molten rock raining down. Vermithor surged forward, bellowing in fury, and the two dragons collided in a storm of claws and wings. The cavern split apart, rock shattering beneath the force of their struggle. Jaehaerys drew his sword, its Valyrian steel shining blue in the firelight, and met his brother's strike. Steel clashed upon steel. "You were my blood!" Jaehaerys shouted. "And you my doom!" cried Aemon. Balon rushed to his father's side, deflecting a blow meant for the king. The heat was suffocating, the roar of dragons deafening. Through the chaos, Aemon's laughter rang, wild and triumphant. "Can you not see, brother?" he cried. "This is what we are meant to be. Not kings and courtiers, but gods reborn through fire." "Then gods you shall die as," Jaehaerys said. He drove his sword forward. The blade struck true. Aemon staggered, eyes wide, and then the mountain itself screamed. Lava burst from the walls, fire searing through the fissure. The pale dragon shrieked in anguish, its wings folding as it collapsed into the pit below. Balon caught his father's arm, dragging him back as the tunnel gave way. Rocks fell, flames roared, and the world vanished into light. When Balon awoke, he lay upon the black sands at the base of Dragonstone's cliffs. Vermithor crouched nearby, wounded but alive. Of Aemon, there was no sign, only smoke rising from the fissure where the mountain had split open. He turned to his father, who sat motionless beside him, sword in hand, eyes on the horizon. "He's gone," Balon said softly. "For now," Jaehaerys murmured. "But fire leaves embers, even when the blaze is quenched." Above them, the Dragonmont still smoldered, glowing faintly like a dying heart. The sea crashed against the rocks, carrying with it the taste of ash and sorrow. "Let us go home," the king said at last. "There is much to mend, and much to remember." And as they rose once more into the sky, Balon looked back one final time at the mountain, wondering whether true death ever came to dragons, or to those who bore their blood. The return to King's Landing was marked by silence. No songs greeted them, no banners waved. Word had spread faster than their wings. The city knew the king had faced his brother in the fires of Dragonstone. Some said both men had perished, others that the mountain itself had swallowed the blood of Targaryens to keep it secret. The truth was quieter, heavier, and far less merciful. Balon rode ahead of his father as they descended upon the dragon pit. Vhagar's scales were streaked with soot, her eyes still burning with the memory of the battle. Behind them, Vermithor limped on torn wings, his bronze hide marred by black scars where the pale dragon's fire had touched him. The dragons of the pit howled in answer, their roars echoing through the city like funeral bells. When the king stepped down from his saddle, the court that had gathered fell to their knees. But Jaehaerys did not speak. His crown was gone, lost to the battle. His eyes were distant, gray as ash. Only when Queen Alysanne came forward did he stir, and even then his words were a whisper. "The fire is quenched," he said, "but it will burn again." That night, the Red Keep held no feasts, no revelry. The great hall stood empty, save for flickering candles and the soft murmur of servants tending the wounded dragons. Balon paced the length of the throne room, the echo of his boots loud in the stillness. The iron throne loomed above him, cold, jagged, and sharp enough to cut any man foolish enough to forget its nature. He looked up at it and thought of Aemon's words. Not kings and courtiers, but gods reborn through fire. There had been madness in that voice, yes, but also conviction. The kind that once built empires, the kind that, unchecked, could burn them to ruin. When Alyssa entered, her steps were swift, her face pale but unshaken. "You've not slept," she said. "Nor have you," he replied. She ignored the jest and went to him, touching his arm. "I've heard what they whisper. They say father slew his own brother, that his sword was red with kin's blood." Balon's jaw tightened. "They speak truth, if only half of it. Aemon struck first. But father, he carries the weight all the same." Alyssa's eyes glistened. "And the dragon? The pale one?" "Dead, I think," Balon said. "The mountain buried it, yet father fears otherwise." Her grip on him tightened. "If it lives, then so does he." Balon turned away. "Then the realm will never know peace." For a time they stood in silence. Then Alyssa whispered, "There's something else. Septon Barth sent for me. He found something in the archives, letters, sealed in wax bearing Aemon's sigil. They were written during his exile." Balon's gaze snapped to hers. "What do they say?" She hesitated. "He wrote of a vision, a prophecy, that beneath the Dragonmont slept 3 flames yet unkindled. He meant to wake them." Balon frowned. 3? We saw but 1. "That may be all that woke," she said softly. "But if he spoke truth, the others remain." The next morning, the king summoned his children to the royal solar. The fire burned low, though the day outside was bright. Jaehaerys sat without crown or scepter, his face lined and pale. "I will speak plain," he began. "The realm believes my brother dead, and so it must remain. If Aemon lives, his madness will find him again, and this time it will not confine itself to Dragonstone. Balin said nothing. Alyssa only lowered her eyes. "You will both swear to guard this secret," said the king, "for if his name spreads anew, it will bring fire upon all our kin." Balin bowed his head. "You have my word." "And mine," Alyssa said. The king nodded slowly. "Then so shall it be written. From this day forth Prince Aemon Targaryen is dead, slain by the sea, as the histories say. No man shall speak otherwise." But even as he said the words, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, not from the heavens, but from the mountain far across the sea. That night the storm came. Rain lashed the city, and wind howled through the streets. Balin stood again upon the battlements, the sea raging beyond. Lightning split the clouds, illuminating the distant waters. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw it. A shape against the storm, vast and pale, gliding low over the waves before vanishing into the night. He felt Alyssa's presence beside him before she spoke. "You saw it too." He nodded. "A ghost, or something worse." "Perhaps both," she said. "Perhaps the fire never truly dies." Below them, the city shivered under the storm's fury. Balin's thoughts turned to his father, who had not emerged from his chambers since their return. Jaehaerys had faced dragons and death in equal measure, yet it was his brother's memory that haunted him most. The burden of blood, Balin realized, was heavier than any crown. Days passed. The storm broke, leaving the air sharp and clean. But unease lingered in the halls of the Red Keep. Courtiers whispered that the king had grown frail, that the dragons in the pit had grown restless. One morning, Balin found his father in the sept, praying before the statues of the seven. "Your Grace," Balin said softly. Jaehaerys looked up, eyes weary. "I have prayed for peace, but the gods give me silence. Perhaps they too are deaf to dragonfire." Balin knelt beside him. "You did what was needed. The realm is safe." "For now," said the king. "But tell me, my son, if fire can be tamed, does it remain fire? Or does it die the moment it is bound?" Balin could not answer. That night, a raven came from Dragonstone. Its message was brief, its words smudged with ash. "The mountain wakes again." The king ordered ships prepared. But when dawn came, his strength had failed him. He could not rise from his bed. Balin stood at his side, the message clenched in his hand. "Father," he said, "let me go. I will see the truth of it." Jaehaerys' eyes flickered open. "If the fire stirs anew," he murmured, "you must do what I could not. End it." Balin bowed his head. "I will." Alyssa met him in the courtyard as he mounted Vhagar. Her hair streamed silver in the wind, her eyes shining with both fear and defiance. "If he lives," she said, "if Aemon still breathes, you will not face him alone." Balin reached down, touching her hand. "Keep faith in Father. I will bring peace one way or another." The dragon's wings unfurled, shaking the stones. As Vhagar rose into the dawning light, Balin looked once more toward the east, where the sea shimmered like molten glass. Beyond it waited Dragonstone, the birthplace of his house, the cradle of its fire, and perhaps its tomb. And as the wind tore past him and the world fell away below, he felt in his bones the truth his father had spoken. Fire could never be tamed. It could only be fed or extinguished. Ahead, the mountain smoked again, red veins pulsing through its black heart. Somewhere within, an ancient voice whispered from the depths of stone and flame. The blood of the dragon had not yet finished its tale. The sea was restless beneath the wings of Vhagar, as Balon approached Dragonstone once more. Dawn had barely touched the horizon, yet already the sky burned red, a bruised and sullen light seeping through the clouds. Smoke rose from the mountain's crown in slow, coiling spirals, and thunder murmured in its depths. The closer he flew, the clearer the stench of ash became, bitter and thick, filling his lungs until he could taste it. The air trembled with heat. It was as if the island itself remembered the battle that had scarred it, and now stirred from uneasy sleep. When Balon landed in the courtyard, the keep was silent. The banners hung limp. The guards stationed at the gates had fled or vanished. Only the low, distant rumble of the Dragonmont broke the stillness. He slid from the saddle, Dark Sister sheathed at his side, and laid a hand upon Vagar's snout. The ancient dragon's breath came in deep, wary huffs, her eyes glowing like coals. "Stay here, old girl," he whispered. "If I do not return, burn the mountain to its roots." The dragon rumbled softly, as if she understood. Balon crossed the black courtyard, his boots echoing against the stone. Steam drifted from the fissures in the ground, hissing through cracks that had not been there before. When he entered the great hall, he found it dark and deserted. The air was thick with the scent of sulfur and charred wood. The throne of Dragonstone, the seat of his ancestors, stood empty. But upon the table of painted wood, where once the kings of old had plotted their conquests, lay a single object, a crown of Valyrian steel and red crystal, scorched at its edges. Balon lifted it carefully. It was Aemon's. Before he could study it further, the sound came, faint, echoing through the hall. A voice, distant yet unmistakable, singing a melody older than the realm. The words were Valyrian, though the tune was wrong, twisted by grief or madness. Balon followed the sound through the corridors and down into the caverns beneath the keep. The heat grew with every step until sweat stung his eyes. The air shimmered, heavy with unseen flame. At last, he came to the chamber where once he and Alyssa had faced the masked rider. It had changed. The rock walls now glowed faintly red, pulsing as though with life. Pools of molten stone cast long, wavering shadows across the ground. And there, standing at the edge of the abyss, was a figure cloaked in red. "You should not have come," said the voice. Balon's hand went to his sword. "I came for truth," he said. "If you are ghost, let me see your face. If you are man, answer for your crimes." The figure turned slowly. His face was pale as snow, yet no wound marred it. The flames behind him gave his eyes the gleam of molten gold. "Crimes," Aemon said softly. "Is it crime to awaken what was meant to live? To free the dragons that your father caged with peace and prayer?" "You brought fire and death to your own kin," Balon said. "You would have burned the realm to ash." "The realm," Aemon said with quiet contempt, "is a cage. You call it peace. I call it decay." He stepped closer, his voice rising. "The dragons grow weaker, Balon, each generation smaller, tamer. Our blood thins, our fire fades. Do you not feel it? The world forgets what it means to fear us." Balon drew Dark Sister, the steel glinting cold in the red light. "Fear is not strength, and you speak like a man long lost to it." Aemon's smile was thin. "Perhaps I am lost, but tell me, nephew, when your father's line dies, who will carry the flame? You, a boy bound by duty and fear?" "I carry the honor of my house," Balon said. "That is enough." "Honor?" Aemon's laughter echoed through the cavern. "Honor does not hatch dragons. Honor does not forge empires. Only fire does that, and fire demands blood. The ground trembled. From the fissures in the rock came a sound, a soft, chittering hiss like the whisper of snakes. Balon stepped back as shadows began to move in the molten glow. Then he saw them, small forms slithering through the cracks, their scales gleaming white and red. Dragon hatchlings, dozens of them. Aemon spread his arms. 3 flames, I wrote. You saw but one. Now behold the others. The mountain births my children, and through them House Targaryen will rise anew. Balon's stomach turned. You would raise a brood of monsters. Monsters? Aemon whispered. No, heirs. The nearest hatchling, no larger than a hound, hissed at Balon, smoke curling from its nostrils. Behind it, others stirred, their wings rustling like parchment. The heat intensified. Balon raised his sword. I will end this before it spreads. Aemon's eyes blazed. Then you will burn with them. The cavern erupted in light. Flame poured from the cracks, a storm of fire that struck the walls and ceiling. Balon dove aside, the air screaming with heat. He slashed at one of the creatures as it lunged, its cry piercing like metal on stone. Do you see, nephew? Aemon shouted over the roar. They are born of the mountain's blood. They will outlive you all. Balon swung Dark Sister in a wide arc, cutting down 2 more hatchlings. Their bodies burst like embers, scattering sparks across the rock. You've doomed yourself, Aemon. The fire you worship will consume you. Better to be consumed than forgotten, Aemon roared. He raised his hands, and flame burst forth from the ground beneath him, forming a pillar of light. Within it, his form seemed to shimmer and fade, as though the fire itself had swallowed him whole. Then came the tremor, greater than any before. The chamber split open. Lava spilled across the floor, swallowing the hatchlings in waves of molten gold. Balon shielded his face as the heat seared his skin. He saw Aemon standing in the heart of the fire, arms raised, his voice a cry of triumph that turned to agony. When the blaze dimmed, there was nothing left of him but ash. Balon stumbled back toward the passage, coughing smoke. He could barely see, barely breathe. The tunnel shuddered, chunks of rock raining from above. Vhagar's roar thundered from outside, shaking the very stone. Vhagar! Balon shouted, his voice hoarse. Fly! The dragon's claws tore into the ground as she pulled him free of the collapsing cavern. The mountain bellowed one final time, a roar that split the air like the cry of some dying god. Then it fell silent. When the smoke cleared, half the peak had caved in, burying the lair and everything within. The sea hissed where molten rock met water. Vhagar landed heavily upon the cliffs, wings trembling. Balon dismounted, his armor scorched and blackened, and gazed at the ruin below. The air shimmered with heat. The mountain still glowed faintly red, but the voice that had haunted it was gone. He fell to his knees, the weight of it pressing upon him. The loss, the blood, the fire. Father, he murmured, it is done. But as he rose, a faint crack reached his ears. Beneath the ash, something stirred. A heartbeat, slow and steady, echoing deep within the mountain's hollow heart. Balon turned toward the sound, his expression grim. Not yet, he whispered. And though the wind tore at his cloak and the sea crashed below, the mountain seemed to breathe once more, its smoke rising higher, darker, as though it too remembered that dragons are never truly dead. When Balon returned to King's Landing, the storm had broken over the city once more. The sea battered the harbor walls, and the air was thick with the scent of rain and smoke. He landed Vhagar within the dragon pit, her wings folding wearily, her scales streaked with ash. The dragon keepers gathered in fear, whispering prayers under their breath. None dared to speak until Baelin's boots struck the stone. "Send word to the Red Keep," he said hoarsely. "The prince has returned." He left Vhagar to rest and climbed the winding path to the castle. Each step felt heavier than the last. His body bore burns along his arms and chest. The fire had kissed him but not claimed him. His mind, though, burned hotter than any wound. For every time he closed his eyes, he saw Aemon's face, half shadow, half flame, and the writhing shapes of the hatchlings born from the mountain's blood. The guards at the gate stared in shock when they saw him, and within moments the news had reached the royal chambers. Alyssa met him in the corridor, breathless, eyes wide with both joy and dread. "Balin," she gasped, "you live, thank the gods." He took her hands, his touch trembling slightly. "The gods had no part in it," he said. "Only fire." She searched his face. "You saw him again." He nodded once. "And ended him. The mountain is sealed. The dragon he raised is dead, or buried deep enough that even the sea cannot wake it." Alyssa exhaled, her shoulders sagging. "Then it's done. It's over." Balon did not answer. He only looked out toward the window, where lightning flickered over the bay. "Nothing born of fire ever truly ends," he murmured. That night, the court gathered in uneasy celebration. Servants filled the great hall with candles, though the flames seemed weak against the heavy shadows. Musicians played softly, but few listened. The king had not left his bed since the night Balin departed, and though the maesters claimed he slept, word spread that he dreamed of fire. When Balin entered, all turned toward him. Some bowed, others whispered. He bore the marks of battle, and even his silver hair was singed dark at the ends. He went first to the queen. "Your Grace," he said, bowing low. Queen Alysanne, proud still though grief lined her face, rose to meet him. "You have returned to us," she said. "My son, the realm owes you peace." "I bring no peace," Balon said quietly. "Only truth." The hall hushed. Alyssa stepped forward, eyes pleading, but he shook his head. "The king's brother, Prince Aemon, lives no more," Balon declared. "He sought to birth dragons from the mountain's blood. I stopped him. The cost was his life, and perhaps more than that." A murmur rippled through the assembled lords. Lord Valerian frowned deeply. "More?" Balin's gaze swept across them. "Before he died, he spoke of 3 flames, 3 yet unkindled. I saw the first, the second and third. I do not know. But if his words were true, they will rise again." The hall fell silent. Queen Alysanne's expression wavered. "You mean there may be others like him?" Balon nodded slowly. "If his madness was shared, or his work continued, the danger remains. Dragonstone may yet hide what even I could not destroy." The queen's hands trembled as she turned to the guards. "Send ravens to the citadel. The maesters are to seal every record of Aemon's name. Let none learn what he sought." But Balon spoke again, his voice steady, cold. "You cannot seal a prophecy, Mother. You can only delay it." Later, when the hall emptied and the storm subsided, Balon walked alone through the silent corridors of the Red Keep. His thoughts were heavy, his body weary. The torches flickered as he passed, their flames bending toward him as though drawn to the scent of fire in his blood. He found himself standing before the doors to his father's chambers. 2 guards stood watch, grim-faced. At his nod, they opened the doors. The room within was dim, lit only by a single candle beside the bed. Jaehaerys lay still beneath the covers, his skin pale as marble, his breath shallow. Beside him, the queen sat vigil, her eyes hollow from sleeplessness. Balon knelt beside the bed. "Father," he whispered. The king's eyes opened slowly. "My son," he rasped. "The fire. Did you quench it?" Balon hesitated. "I tried." Jaehaerys' lips curved faintly, almost a smile. "You cannot quench fire, Balon. You can only feed it with better fuel." His gaze drifted toward the window, where distant thunder rolled. "Aemon is gone, yet his flame will pass to others. It is the curse of our blood. Then we are doomed to repeat it," Balon said bitterly. "Perhaps," said the king, "or perhaps one day a Targaryen will learn how to bear the fire without burning." The words lingered as his strength faded. When the candle guttered and went out, Jaehaerys, the old king, breathed his last. The morning bells began at dawn. From the Sept of Baelor to the docks of Flea Bottom, the city wept. The realm had lost its wisest ruler, and though Balon stood tall beside the bier, his heart felt hollow. Alyssa wept beside him, her tears falling silently onto her father's still hand. After the ceremony, Balon climbed the steps to the rooftop balcony overlooking the sea. The wind tore at his cloak, carrying the cries of gulls and the scent of salt. He looked eastward to where Dragonstone lay hidden in mist. Alyssa found him there, her face pale beneath her hood. "He's gone," she said, "and yet I feel as though his watch has not ended." Balon turned to her. "The realm is yours to comfort now, sister, and mine to defend." She studied him, eyes narrowing. "You mean to return?" He did not deny it. "If there are embers left in that mountain, I must see them buried. If the fire sleeps, I will guard its dreams." "Balon," she said softly, "you are not just my brother now. You are heir to the Iron Throne. The realm needs you here." He smiled faintly. "The realm will have me, but the dragons will not rest until their bond is mended. If I do nothing, all Father built will fall to ashes." She reached out, catching his arm. "Then promise me you will return. Promise me this fire will not take you too." Balon looked out toward the sea, where the morning sun broke through the clouds. "I promise nothing to fire," he said, "but I will fight it while breath remains." Below, the bells tolled one final time. The people of King's Landing bowed their heads in grief, unaware that the last of their peace was already fading into smoke. Far across the water, unseen by any man, the Dragonmont smoldered once more. Deep within its heart, beneath stone and ash, something moved, slow, patient, and alive. A single crack split the crust of cooled rock, and through it, a faint light shone, the glow of an ember, waiting only for air to breathe again. The fire had not died. It had only begun to dream. Spring came late to King's Landing that year. The rains had dragged through winter, and the skies above the capital hung heavy with mist. The mourning banners for the old king had not yet been taken down, their black cloths rippling weakly along the walls of the Red Keep. But while the city mourned, the court whispered, and while courtiers whispered, dragons dreamed. Balon Targaryen, now heir apparent and prince of Dragonstone, spent his nights pacing the ramparts, staring eastward toward the dark silhouette of the island that had haunted his bloodline for centuries. The smoke above the Dragonmont had thinned, yet the air itself felt restless, charged with something unseen. The crown weighed upon him more than any armor he had worn. His father's death had left him with power, but little peace. Alysanne, his mother, had withdrawn to her chambers, seldom seen save in the Sept, and Alyssa, bright, brave Alyssa, had taken to flight upon Silverwing whenever the walls pressed too close. But Balon could not find escape, not even in the sky. Duty held him fast, and when word came that the mountain smoked anew, he knew the time for mourning was done. He summoned his sister to the council chamber before dawn. "The fires have returned," he said without preamble. "Fishermen near Driftmark saw light within the mountain 3 nights past. The maesters claim it's only steam, the breath of the earth. But I know better." Alyssa studied him across the table, her silver hair loose over her shoulders. "You mean to go back?" "I must," he said. "If anything still lives within the mountain, it must be ended before it grows strong." "Father said the same before his last flight," she reminded him softly. "And the cost was his life." Balin's gaze did not waver. "Father faced a man. I will face what remains of him." She said nothing for a long moment, then sighed. "Then I will not let you go alone." He almost smiled. "You never do." By midday, they took to the air. Balin upon Vhagar, Alyssa upon Silverwing, 2 shadows crossing the sea. The wind carried salt and the sharp scent of storm. Beneath them, the waves gleamed like molten steel. When Dragonstone came into sight, its towers rose dark against the horizon. The volcano's crown wreathed once more in pale smoke. The castle seemed asleep, its windows dark, its gates closed. But as they descended, Balin felt it again. The faint hum in the air, the heartbeat beneath the stone. They landed in the courtyard, where no guards awaited them. The silence was thick, broken only by the soft hiss of steam from cracks in the ground. The island felt watching. "Something stirs here," Alyssa whispered. Balin drew Dark Sister. Aemon's fire still lingers. They moved through the halls, the torchlight dancing along the carved dragons that adorned the walls. The air grew hotter as they descended, until at last they reached the great doors that led into the Dragonmont's hollow heart. Balin pushed them open. The cavern beyond had changed again. The roof hung low with black stone that glimmered faintly red, as though veins of fire pulsed through it. Pools of molten rock bubbled quietly, and at the center of the vast chamber lay what remained of the pit, the place where Balin had last seen his uncle burn. The rock was cracked, and from its heart came a low, rhythmic sound, a heartbeat. Balin stepped forward slowly. "He's gone," he said aloud, as if to convince himself. "Aemon is gone." The heartbeat answered, stronger, faster. Alyssa caught his arm. "Balin, look." From the fissures in the stone, faint light spilled, not red but white, like moonlight trapped beneath the earth. The glow spread, spiderwebbing through the rock until the whole chamber shone with it. And then, from the heart of the pit, a shadow began to rise. Balin raised his sword, his breath catching. It was no man that emerged from the fire this time, but a shape vast and terrible. Wings folded, scales white as snow, eyes like pale flame. It was the pale dragon reborn, larger now, the fire within its chest pulsing like a living heart. Alyssa gasped. "It can't be." "It lives," Balin whispered. "By the gods, it lives." The creature turned its gaze upon them, and the air itself seemed to hold still. When it opened its jaws, no flame came, only a low, echoing growl that shook the stones. Balin stepped forward. "You were his creature," he said softly. "But your master is gone. You have no bond now." The dragon's gaze shifted, and for an instant, Balin thought he saw understanding, or something like it. But then it lowered its head, and he felt the heat rise again. The fire returned to its throat, building, gathering. "Balin!" Alyssa cried. He moved first. Vhagar answered his call with a roar that split the air as she crashed through the cavern roof, the old dragon's wings scattering rock and ash. Silverwing followed, her cry sharp and clear. Flame met flame. The cavern erupted into chaos. The pale dragon rose from the pit, its wings vast enough to fill the chamber. its fire white as lightning. Vhagar struck it from the side, claws raking, jaws snapping. Silverwing darted between them, cutting the air with blinding speed. Balon leapt for Vhagar's saddle as debris rained around them. "To the sky!" he shouted. The dragons burst from the mountain in a storm of smoke and flame, the sky above Dragonstone alive with fire. The pale dragon wheeled higher, shrieking, its wings scattering sparks. It was fast, faster than any dragon Balon had ever faced. He gritted his teeth. "Old girl," he murmured to Vhagar. "Let's remind it who rules the sky." Vhagar answered with a thunderous bellow, diving straight into the storm. The two dragons collided above the sea, their roars echoing for miles. Fire streaked across the clouds, turning day to dusk. Silverwing darted in and out, striking where she could, but the pale dragon's fury was beyond reckoning. It lashed out, catching her wing with a blast of white flame. Alyssa screamed as her dragon faltered, smoke trailing from her scales. Balon's heart froze. "Alyssa!" But she righted herself, Silverwing gliding low toward the waves. "Finish it!" she cried, her voice faint but fierce. Balon turned back to the battle. The pale dragon dove again, jaws open, its fire blinding. He pulled Vhagar into a sharp climb, higher and higher, until the wind tore at his armor and his breath came short. The enemy followed, tireless, roaring. "Now!" he whispered. Vhagar folded her wings. The world tilted. They fell, a black shadow streaking toward the white. At the last instant, Balon drove Dark Sister down, straight into the creature's throat. The blade sank deep. The pale dragon's scream shattered the air. It flailed, twisting wildly, wings folding as it plunged toward the sea. Balon pulled back, gasping. "Fly, Vhagar!" The ancient dragon obeyed, veering hard to avoid the fall. Below, the pale dragon struck the water with a sound like thunder. The sea erupted, and then silence. Balon hovered above, chest heaving, his armor drenched in sweat and blood. The waves boiled for a long moment, then stilled. It was done. When he landed upon Dragonstone again, the mountain was quiet. Alyssa joined him soon after, her face streaked with soot, her eyes bright with tears. "Is it over?" she asked. Balon looked to the horizon, where the sea steamed faintly. "For now," he said, "but the mountain still lives, and so long as it breathes, so too will the fire." Alyssa laid her head upon his shoulder. "Then we will watch and wait." The wind carried the scent of ash and salt, and for the first time in many moons, the sky over Dragonstone was clear. Yet deep within the island, beneath the cooling stone, something faintly pulsed, slow, patient, and alive. The dragons had not been tamed, only quieted, and the blood of the dragon, as ever, was still bound by fire. The weeks that followed were uneasy ones. Though the skies above Dragonstone cleared, the hearts of its people did not. The mountain had fallen silent again, but silence could be more terrible than thunder. Sailors swore that when the wind shifted east, they could still hear the roar of dragons beneath the waves. Some claimed to have seen light glimmering far below the surface, white and steady as a ghostly flame. Balon remained on the island, repairing what the fire had broken. His sister wished to return to King's Landing, but he refused. "The sea is still restless," he told her. "I will not leave until I know the mountain sleeps for good." Alyssa stayed at his side despite her protests, riding Silverwing above the cliffs each morning while Balon met with the dragon keepers. The great beasts were uneasy. They refused to feed, their eyes fixed toward the mountain as though waiting for something. Even Vhagar, old and proud, would not rest easy, pacing within her pit with a low, rumbling growl. On the 10th night, Balon dreamed. He stood upon the mountain's edge beneath a red sky. The sea boiled below, and the air was thick with ash. From the pit where Eamon had fallen, fire rose, not red, but white, cold, and blinding. Within the flames, a shadow took form, a dragon of light and darkness both, vast enough to blot the sun. Behind it, 1,000 smaller shapes stirred, hatching from stone and smoke. "Do you see now, nephew?" came Eamon's voice from the fire. "You cannot kill what was born of flame." Balin tried to move, but the ground crumbled beneath him. The mountains split open, revealing a hollow world beneath, a world of burning veins, where dragons writhed in chains of molten gold. Above it all, the pale dragon turned its gaze upon him, its eyes twin suns. He awoke gasping, his body slick with sweat. The fire in the hearth had died, yet the room was hot as a forge. The sound of thunder rolled in the distance. He rose and went to the window. Outside, the mountain glowed faintly red once more. When morning came, he told no one of the dream. Instead, he ordered the Meisters to take new measurements of the tremors beneath the island. They found signs that disturbed them, small fissures deep in the bedrock, heat building again. "It may only be the mountain settling after the eruption," said one, though his voice lacked conviction. "Or it may be something else," Balin replied. That evening, as the sun sank blood-red over the narrow sea, Alyssa found her brother upon the cliffs. His cloak whipped in the wind, and the waves below crashed like drums of war. "You haven't slept," she said softly. He did not turn. "I dreamed of him." Her voice faltered. "Of Aemon?" He nodded. "He said the fire cannot die. I thought it madness once. Now I am not so certain." Alyssa stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. "Dreams are wind, Balin. They cannot touch the living." He looked at her then, his eyes shadowed. "And yet, our house was built on dreams. Dragons, fire, omens. You think this is over, but I can feel it. The blood still stirs beneath the rock." She hesitated, then said, "Then if the mountain wakes again, we will face it together, as we always have." He almost smiled. "You speak as though you were born for war." "Perhaps I was," she said. "Fire does not frighten me. Only losing you does." The next day, Balin descended into the depths once more. The path was narrow, the air thick with heat. He went alone, refusing even the guard's company. He carried no torch. The faint red glow from the fissures lit his way. The deeper he went, the stronger the heat became, until the very air shimmered around him. At last he reached the chamber where the first battle had been fought. The floor was cracked and blackened, and the great fissure where the pale dragon had lain was sealed by cooled stone. He knelt beside it, pressing his palm to the rock. It burned against his skin, alive with faint vibration. "Sleep," he murmured. "Sleep, and do not wake again." But the stone seemed to pulse beneath his hand, like the slow heartbeat of some buried beast. He drew back sharply. A whisper rose, faint at first, like wind through cracks, then stronger. It was not words at all, but sound, the deep, steady rhythm of something vast, breathing beneath the earth. Balin fled the tunnels, his heart pounding. When he reached the surface, the sky had turned gray with storm. Alyssa waited near the courtyard, her expression tight with fear. "What did you find?" she asked. He looked back toward the mountain, smoke curling once more from its crown. "Not death," he said. "Something worse, something waiting." That night, the storm struck. Lightning split the sky and thunder rolled across the sea. The wind howled through the halls of Dragonstone, shaking the ancient stones. In the dragon pit, the great beasts roared in answer, their cries wild and terrified. Balin rushed to the courtyard, rain lashing his face. The mountain glowed red again, brighter than before, its summit crowned with fire. "The gods have forsaken us," whispered one of the guards. "No," Balin said grimly. "This is no god's work." He called for Vhagar, her roar cutting through the storm. Alyssa came beside him, mounting Silverwing. "If you go, I go," she said. He met her eyes, then nodded. "Then let us face it together." They rose into the tempest, rain and ash swirling around them. The mountain below split open anew, rivers of molten rock spilling down its slopes. From its heart, something rose. Not one dragon, but many, their forms half-formed, wings of smoke and fire. "7 hells," Alyssa breathed. Balin drew Dark Sister. "No more shall rise." They dove into the fire, their dragons roaring. The sky above Dragonstone became a storm of wings, lightning flashing upon scale and flame. Balin's blade caught the light as he struck, and the fire answered, consuming the beasts as quickly as they were born. But for every one that fell, another clawed its way free. The air filled with their cries, a chorus of agony and defiance. Vhagar roared, old fury in her voice, and the storm itself seemed to bow before her. She unleashed her fire upon the mountain, melting stone and sky alike. Silverwing joined her, her silver flame cutting through the night. And then, at last, the mountain gave way. With a roar that shook the heavens, it collapsed inward, burying the fiery brood beneath tons of stone. The flames guttered, the light dimmed, and the storm broke apart into rain. When the smoke cleared, the sea hissed where molten rock had poured into its depths. The once great Dragonmont was broken, its peak shattered, its fires drowned. Balin circled once above the ruin, his breath ragged, his heart hollow. Alyssa's voice reached him faintly through the wind. "Is it done?" He looked down at the ruins of the mountain, the home of his forefathers, and felt a weight settle upon his soul. "It is done," he said, "but the blood remembers." They turned toward the sea, the dawn breaking pale and cold behind them. The fire was gone, for now. But in the quiet that followed, Balin felt its echo deep within his chest, beating in time with his heart. The bonds of the dragon had not been broken, only tested. And in the ashes of Dragonstone, the price of their fire was yet to be paid. For a season, peace returned to the realm. The winds over the narrow sea softened, the waves calmed, and even the mountain that had groaned for years lay quiet beneath its shroud of ash. But in King's Landing, peace was a thin veil stretched over fear. The death of Jaehaerys had left a void, and the tale of fire at Dragonstone lingered in whispers that neither time nor decree could silence. Balon Targaryen, the Spring Prince, ruled as heir to the Iron Throne, yet his heart remained chained to the island of his birth. In his dreams, he still heard the rumble of the Dragonmont and smelled the sulfur rising from its cracks. He woke each night with the taste of smoke on his tongue and the faint echo of a roar fading in his ears. Alyssa, ever steadfast, tried to draw him back into the life of court. She walked beside him in the gardens, urging him to attend councils, to look toward the future, not the embers of the past. But Balin's gaze was always east. One morning, as the dawn light touched the towers of the Red Keep, a raven came from Dragonstone. Its wings were blackened with soot, and its claws clutched a shard of obsidian. The message it carried was brief, scrawled in a trembling hand. "The mountain bleeds again." Balin read the words twice, then burned the parchment. "Summon my sister," he told the guards, "and ready Vhagar." When Alyssa entered, her face pale from the early hour, she saw the look in his eyes and knew before he spoke. You mean to go back, she said. I must, Balin replied. If the mountain lives, if even one ember remains, it will rise again. You saw what Aemon began. If his fire spreads, the realm will burn. Alyssa clenched her hands. We broke the mountain, Balin. You and I both. There is nothing left there but stone and ash. Then I will see it with my own eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, softly, I will come with you. But Balon shook his head. Not this time. I will not risk you again. You cannot face it alone, she argued. I will not face it at all if the gods are kind, he said, though his tone betrayed no hope. This is a duty I carry for our father. You will guard the realm if I fail. Alyssa's eyes glistened, but she bowed her head. Then may the Seven watch over you, brother. For if the fire takes you too, it will take me with you in spirit. Before sunset, Balin was gone. Vaegar's wings beat across the sky, and the city below watched as the heir of the Iron Throne vanished into the horizon like a shadow swallowed by flame. He reached Dragonstone by moonrise. The island was shrouded in fog, its cliffs slick with rain. The old castle loomed above the sea, silent and empty. He dismounted in the courtyard, where once dragons had slept and kings had walked, and felt the faint tremor of the earth beneath his boots. Smoke drifted faintly from the broken crown of the Dragonmont, not the wild smoke of eruption, but thin, steady, and purposeful, like a breath drawn and held. Balin climbed the winding path to the mountain's mouth, sword in hand. The air grew hotter with each step. The tunnels he had sealed months before now gaped open once again, edges glowing faintly as if cut by invisible flame. He entered the dark. The heat was suffocating, the air thick with the scent of brimstone. The deeper he went, the stronger the glow became, until the walls themselves seemed to pulse with red light. When he reached the chamber at the mountain's heart, he stopped. Where once had been ruin and rock, there was now a pool, a lake of molten fire, its surface rippling with dim light. And above it, suspended like a reflection of a reflection, hung something that should not have been. It was an egg. No, not one. 3, each the size of a man's chest, their shells shimmering white and red, as though they had been forged from living flame. They floated upon the heat, unburned, unbroken. Balin stared in silence, the truth striking him harder than any sword. Aemon's words returned to him. 3 flames yet unkindled. The mountain had not died. It had been waiting. He approached slowly, the fire parting around him like mist. When he drew near, one of the eggs shuddered, a faint crack running along its shell. The sound was soft, almost gentle, yet it echoed through the cavern like thunder. No, Balin whispered. Not again. He drew Dark Sister, its Valyrian steel glimmering red in the light, and raised it high. You will not wake. He struck. The blade met the shell and shattered like glass. A blast of heat flung him backward, his armor searing against his skin. The eggs glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm like hearts. From within came a sound, a slow, deep heartbeat, threefold and in harmony. Balin staggered to his feet, clutching his arm. His sword lay in fragments, molten at the edges. He turned toward the tunnel, but the air had shifted. The heat moved with purpose now, the fire crawling along the walls like a living thing. A voice spoke, not from the air, but from within the flame itself. You cannot kill what is promised. Balin froze. It was Aemon's voice, faint, distant, yet unmistakable. You cast me into fire, nephew, and thought it my tomb, but fire is no tomb for dragons. It is womb. Balin backed toward the tunnel. You are dead. "I am reborn," came the whisper. "As are they. Blood calls to blood. You may slay the body, but the flame remembers its master." The ground trembled, and the fire surged upward, taking the shape of a man, a figure of flame, featureless save for eyes that burned white. Balin lifted his arm to shield his face. "If you mean to rise, you'll rise over my ashes." "So be it," said the fire. It struck like lightning. The blast hurled him backward once more, the world spinning in fire and smoke. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the mountain's heart bursting open, the eggs glowing brighter and brighter until the world itself seemed to melt away. When he awoke, it was daylight. The sea was calm, the sky clear. He lay upon the cliffs, his armor blackened, his body weak. The mountain stood silent behind him, no smoke rising from its peak. He rose unsteadily, staring back at the place where he had fallen. The entrance to the cavern was sealed, smooth and unbroken, as if it had never been touched. Had it been a dream? He looked down and froze. In the hollow of his burned palm, 3 faint marks had been seared into his flesh, curved, delicate, unmistakable, the shapes of dragon eggs. A shiver ran through him. He closed his fist and turned toward the sea. The fire had slept again, but he knew it would wake. Whether in his lifetime or another's, it did not matter. The flame had passed into him. He mounted Vhagar and took to the sky, flying west toward the Red Keep. The wind cooled his face. Yet within him burned something he could not name. Not fear, not pride, but a strange, endless knowing. Dragons do not die. They only wait for the world to remember them. When Balon returned to King's Landing, the city seemed changed. Though the same towers rose against the sky and the same sea lapped at the harbor walls, the air felt heavier, as though the world itself waited for something unseen. The people cheered when they saw Vhagar's shadow pass above, yet their voices carried fear as much as awe. Word had already spread that the mountain burned again, and that Balon Targaryen had gone into its heart and returned alone. He dismounted in the dragon pit, his armor still scorched, his face pale. The keepers bowed low, whispering blessings they half believed. Vhagar growled softly, her vast wings folding as Balon stepped onto the black stone floor. "Rest, old friend," he said, his voice hoarse. "We are home, though I scarce know if it is peace that waits for us." From the pit, he walked alone to the Red Keep. The guards at the gates fell silent as he passed. When he entered the throne room, Queen Alysanne rose from the dais, her expression sharp with fear and hope. Alyssa stood beside her, pale as moonlight. "Balon," the queen said, her voice trembling, "by all the gods, we thought you lost." "I was," he replied simply, "but the fire gave me back." The words chilled the hall. Alyssa came forward swiftly, her hands gripping his. "You're burned," she whispered, tracing the scars that ran across his palms. "It is nothing," he said, though his eyes darkened. "The mountain is quiet now, but its heart still beats." He did not speak of the eggs, not yet. Some truths, he thought, could not be shared, not with his mother, not even with his sister. The court pressed him for tales of his battle, but he gave them only fragments. "The fire is quenched," he said. "The realm is safe." Yet as he spoke, he felt the faint pulse in his hand, the heat beneath his skin that no cool water could soothe. That night, when the castle slept, Balon went to the sept. The torches flickered low, their light bending strangely around him. He knelt before the statues of the seven and bowed his head. "If the gods hear, let them answer," he murmured. "Tell me what I am to do. Tell me how to still the fire within me." But the gods gave him only silence, He rose, weary, and found Alyssa waiting at the doors. She had shed her cloak and wore a simple gown, her hair loose about her shoulders. "You prayed?" she asked softly. "I tried." "Did they answer?" He gave a short, bitter laugh. "If they did, they spoke in fire." She reached for his hand and flinched when she felt the heat. "Balin, your skin burns." "It has since I left the mountain," he said. "The flame does not fade." She looked at him long, her eyes full of sorrow. "Then the fire did not die with Eamon." "No," Balin said quietly. "It never does." In the days that followed, strange things began to stir. The dragons in the pit grew restless, their roars echoing through the city at night. The keepers swore the beasts would not eat, their eyes fixed eastward toward Dragonstone. On the second night, one of the hatchlings, barely grown from the egg, broke its chains and set fire to its own stall. It perished in its own flames before any could stop it. The maesters blamed sickness. Balon knew better. The fire was calling. He spent long hours in the library, poring over ancient scrolls, Valyrian histories, fragments of prophecy, forgotten treatises written in tongues few alive could still read. He found mention of the triune flame, a legend of 3 fires born from one bloodline: the fire of conquest, the fire of madness, and the fire of renewal. When one was quenched, the others would rise until the circle was complete. Aemon sought to awaken it, Balin realized, and I have carried it back with me. Each night his dreams grew stranger. He saw wings of white and red spreading across the sky, the sea boiling beneath them. He saw the Iron Throne melting in dragonfire, and from its ruins rose 3 dragons, one with eyes like gold, one like blood, and one like his own reflection. He woke one night to find his bed in smoke. His sheets had smoldered, though no flame had touched them. When he reached for water, the silver cup in his hand burned his palm. Alyssa found him at dawn, pacing the balcony, his face drawn and pale. "You haven't slept in days," she said. "You're burning yourself alive." He turned to her. "Perhaps that is what must be done." She stepped closer, anger and grief in her eyes. "You sound like him. Like Aemon." Balin's voice hardened. "I am not Aemon." "Then prove it," she said. "Let the fire go. Leave Dragonstone to its ghosts." He looked out across the sea, where the faintest wisp of smoke still lingered over the horizon. "You cannot leave behind what is bound to your blood." Before she could answer, a horn sounded from the harbor. A ship had arrived from Driftmark, its sails torn and blackened. The men aboard were half dead, their faces blistered from heat. They brought with them a tale that chilled the court to silence. They had sailed near Dragonstone, they said, when the sea began to steam. The waters boiled beneath their hull, and a column of white fire had burst from the mountain's ruins, reaching for the clouds. Then they saw shapes, vast shadows moving beneath the waves, gliding toward the surface. "Dragons?" Alyssa whispered when Balon told her. "Perhaps," he said, "or something worse." The council urged him to send men, but Balon refused. "No mortal army can fight the fire," he said. "It knows only dragon's blood." That night, he went once more to the dragon pit. Vhagar stirred as he approached, her ancient eyes gleaming. The heat that radiated from his body no longer disturbed her. She lowered her head, nostrils flaring, as if scenting something new or something long forgotten. "We are bound by more than saddle and steel, old girl," he whispered. "The fire calls us both." He mounted her, the saddle creaking beneath his weight. The air was still. Not even the sea wind stirred. Then, with a cry that split the night, Vhagar leapt skyward. The city shrank beneath them as they soared eastward, toward the horizon where smoke met stars. The moon shone upon the water, pale and cold, and Balin felt the heat within him grow brighter, answering the mountain's call. When at last Dragonstone came into view, its cliffs shone red in the moonlight. The volcano's peak glimmered faintly, not aflame, but pulsing, as though a great heart beat beneath the rock. Balin reined Vhagar to a hover above it. "So it begins again," he said quietly. And as if in answer, the mountain exhaled. A thin wisp of smoke drifted upward, spreading across the night sky like the first breath of a waking beast. Balin closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of heat in his veins, the rhythm of the mountain's heart matching his own. The fire within and the fire below were one and the same. "I am no Aemon," he whispered, "but I am his kin, and I will master what he could not." The wind howled around him, the sea roared below, and as Vhagar's wings carried him through the smoke, the mountain glowed brighter, casting its light upon the dark waters. The world held its breath, and for the first time since the Age of Conquest, the dragons of House Targaryen stirred not in sleep, but in awakening. The dawn that followed Balin's flight was unlike any seen in living memory. The sky above Dragonstone burned crimson, and streaks of light, white and gold, flickered across the clouds as though lightning had been caught and stilled. From the mainland, fishermen who dared the early waters swore they saw two suns rise that morning, one of fire, one of blood. High above the island, Balin circled Vhagar through the reddened mist. The dragon's wings cut through clouds of ash, her ancient roar rolling across the sea. Below, the mountain glowed faintly, its crown pulsing like a heart. The tremors that had haunted Dragonstone for years had returned, but this time, the earth's voice was measured, steady. A rhythm, not a warning. Balin felt that rhythm within himself. Every beat of his heart answered it. The scar upon his palm, where the marks of the 3 eggs had been burned into his flesh, throbbed in time with the mountain's breath. He guided Vhagar down, landing upon a blackened ridge near the mouth of the volcano. The heat shimmered around him, yet it did not burn. The fire had become a familiar companion, whispering softly in his veins. The entrance to the lower caverns was sealed once more, as if the earth itself had healed its wounds. Balin dismounted, his boots crunching over cooled obsidian. For a long while, he stood in silence, listening. Then, faintly, he heard it, a sound he had known since childhood, yet one that now filled him with dread and wonder both. The sound of dragons, not one nor two, but many. Low, rumbling calls, distant and overlapping, echoing through the stone as if the mountain itself spoke in their tongues. Balin descended. The passage was narrow and slick with heat, yet he walked unflinching. The further he went, the brighter the air became, until the tunnel opened into the great hollow chamber that had once been Aemon's forge. He stopped at the threshold and caught his breath. The lake of molten fire was gone. In its place lay a valley of black stone, smooth and gleaming, cracked through with glowing lines of red. And upon that stone, in the center of the chamber, rested 3 enormous eggs. Each was larger than any egg Balin had ever seen, their shells hard and translucent as crystal. The first shimmered with red and gold veins, the second, pale as moonlight, flickered with inner flame. The third, black and silver, seemed to swallow the light around it. Balin fell to his knees. The marks upon his hand flared in response. The eggs pulsed, alive. "Aemon's prophecy," he whispered. 3 flames unkindled, and I am their keeper." He rose slowly, stepping toward the nearest egg. As his hand brushed its surface, he felt warmth, not the burning of heat, but the thrum of life beneath the shell. For an instant, He saw flashes in his mind, a sky filled with dragons, wings beating like thunder, castles aflame, and men kneeling beneath banners of black and red. The vision passed, leaving him trembling. "This is no dream," he murmured. "The blood remembers." From the shadows a voice answered, soft, distant, yet clear. As it should. Balon spun, hand to his dagger, but no man stood there, only a shimmer in the air, the outline of a figure made of flame and smoke. The shape was tall and slender, the face half-formed, eyes burning white. "Aemon," Balon said, his voice low. The figure tilted its head. Once. But now, less man than memory. The fire keeps what it loves. "You should be dust," Balon hissed. "I saw you die." "Fire does not die," said the shade. "It changes shape." Balon took a step forward. "You would see the realm burn again, after all you destroyed?" "I would see it reborn," Aemon's voice replied. "The dragons are not a curse, nephew. They are our purpose. When they return, the world will bend anew. You speak of ruin. I speak of truth." The eggs behind him pulsed, light spilling across the black stone. "They hear you," Aemon said softly. "They wait for your will." Balon's hand shook. "No. The dragons must remain asleep. The realm cannot bear another age of fire." The shade moved closer, its form flickering. "You cannot deny what you are. You carry the flame now. Your father's peace was built upon ashes. Will you spend your life guarding embers, or will you light the world anew?" "I will not be you," Balon said. "Then you will be nothing," Aemon whispered. The cavern trembled. The eggs began to crack. Hairline fractures spread across their surfaces, light spilling from within. Balon raised his arm to shield his face. "No!" he cried, stepping forward. "Not yet!" But the fire would not heed him. The first egg split open with a sound like thunder. From within, a burst of red flame erupted, taking the shape of a dragon no larger than a horse, its scales burning gold and scarlet. It shrieked, wings unfurling in the light. The second cracked next, releasing a creature pale and silver, eyes glowing with icy flame. The third followed, its shell breaking into shards that fell like glass. From it rose a dragon of shadow and smoke, its scales black as obsidian, its fire blue-white. Balon fell to his knees, awe and terror battling within him. The dragons turned their gaze toward him as one, their eyes ancient and knowing. The shade of Aemon smiled faintly. "There, the bond is sealed." "What bond?" Balon demanded. "The bond of the dragon," said the spirit. "Your fire, their flame. You will command them, or they will command you. Choose before they learn to hunger." With that, the shade faded, its light vanishing into the cracks of the mountain. Balon was left alone with the dragons. The smallest crept toward him, its talons hissing against the stone. He met its gaze and felt the fire surge through him, a tide of heat and strength that filled his bones. The others watched, silent, waiting. Balon rose slowly. "You are mine," he said softly, "and through me you will serve the realm, not destroy it." The dragons hissed in answer, their fire flaring bright, and for a moment Balon felt their will touch his own, vast, wild, and terrible. Above, the mountain roared. The sound rolled across the sea, shaking ships in the harbor of Driftmark. Smoke poured from the volcano's crown, white and red, curling into the sky like banners of war. Balon stood at the heart of the fire, the dragons at his back, the world trembling beneath his feet. He knew what this meant. The peace his father had forged was ending. The age of dragons was stirring once more. He turned toward the light of the exit, the heat at his heels. "So be it," he whispered. "If fire is our fate, Let it burn for something worth the cost. Vhagar's roar answered from above, echoing through the mountain. The 3 young dragons cried in unison, their voices rising to meet hers. And in that moment, beneath the awakening sky, Balon Targaryen, son of Jaehaerys, heir of Dragonstone, became more than man, more than prince. He became what his blood had always promised, the Lord of Fire. The mountain blazed behind him, and the dragon's cries carried across the sea, heralding the return of a power the world had long forgotten and would soon learn to fear once more. Word of the awakening reached King's Landing before the second sunrise. Ravens came heavy with ash, their feathers scorched, their eyes wild with fright. Fishermen along the Blackwater spoke of fire seen on the eastern horizon, a crimson glare that bled into the sea. By dusk, the rumor had a name: Balon, the Burning. The court called him mad in whispers. The maesters spoke of sickness from the fumes of the mountain, of visions brought by fever. Yet those who had seen the sky knew better. The night above Dragonstone had burned like dawn, and something vast had flown there, brighter than any star. In the Red Keep, Queen Alysanne wept. "Not my son," she murmured again and again. The gods would not take both of them. Alyssa, her face pale as marble, refused to sit still. She summoned the small council, demanded ships, demanded soldiers, demanded the truth. "If he lives, I will bring him home," she said. "And if he's lost, then I will find what took him." But before the fleet could be made ready, the sky itself answered. At dusk, the people of King's Landing looked up and saw shapes upon the clouds. Not 1, but 4. The first, vast and black-winged, was Vhagar. The second, a flash of silver light. The third, red as blood. The fourth, darker than night, its flame burning blue. They passed over the city in silence, their shadows swallowing the towers and the sea alike. When they vanished beyond the western horizon, a cry rose from the crowd that no herald could quiet. The dragons had returned. Balon came to ground not in the dragon pit, but upon the field of fire outside the city walls, the same plain where Aegon the Conqueror had broken the realm to his will a century before. The earth trembled as Vhagar landed, her great claws digging furrows in the blackened soil. Behind her came the 3 new dragons, smaller but radiant, their wings casting light across the darkened field. Balon dismounted, his armor scorched, his eyes alight. The marks on his palms glowed faintly through his gauntlets. He stood before the gathered knights and guards who had ridden out to meet him, and for a long moment, no one dared move. Then Sir Ryam Redwine, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, stepped forward and dropped to one knee. "My prince," he said. "The city trembles. Tell us, what are these creatures?" Balon looked at the dragons behind him. "They are ours," he said simply. "Born of Dragonstone's fire, blood of our blood. The realm thought the flame gone, but it sleeps only until called." The knights bowed their heads. None dared meet his gaze. When Balon entered the Red Keep, the queen rose from her seat as though pulled by some unseen force. "My son," she breathed. He knelt before her and pressed his forehead to her hand. "Mother." But the warmth of his skin made her flinch. His flesh was fever hot, as though the fire lived beneath it. His hair, once pale silver, now gleamed with streaks of red gold in the torchlight. "What have you done?" she whispered. "What was required," Balon said softly. "The dragons are bound to our blood. They would not die while we live." Alyssa stood behind the queen, eyes fixed on her brother. "And what of Aemon's prophecy? The flames unkindled. You have woken them, haven't you?" "I have mastered them," Balin said, though a shadow crossed his face as he spoke. That night, thunder rolled across the city, though no rain fell. From the highest tower, Balin watched his dragons circling above the bay, red, silver, and black, their fire lighting the waves. The people below called it a miracle, a sign that the age of dragons had returned. But Balin knew better. Fire does not give, it only takes. The days that followed were filled with fear and awe. The maesters recorded the birth of the new dragons with trembling hands. Lords from across the realm sent messages pledging fealty or demanding answers. The faith spoke of punishment, the small folk of prophecy fulfilled. Balin kept to himself. He spoke little, slept less. The fire within him burned brighter each day. When he closed his eyes, he felt the dragons in his mind, their hunger, their rage, their yearning to fly. He could hear their hearts beating in the dark, threefold, in rhythm with his own. On the seventh day, Alyssa came to him. "You cannot keep them here," she said. "The city will not survive their fire. The people already fear you." Balin turned toward her, his eyes gleaming like molten gold. "They should fear me," he said. "It is fear that keeps the realm from breaking." Father ruled with peace, not fear. And where did peace leave him? Buried with his dreams. "Do you hear yourself?" she demanded. "You sound like Eamon." At the name, Balin flinched. For a heartbeat, his fury faltered, and the weariness beneath it showed. "I am not him," he said hoarsely. "I am what he could not be. I control the fire." "Do you?" she asked softly. "Or does it control you?" He said nothing. That night, the dragons broke free. The guards swore the sky itself split open with flame. The youngest of the three, the black and silver, tore through the dragon pit's dome, its cry shaking the foundations of the city. The others followed, their wings blotting out the stars. Balin woke to the sound of their screams. He rushed to the battlements, fire already flickering in his eyes. "No," he whispered. "Not here." He called to them in the old tongue, his voice rising over the storm. The dragons turned, circling above the bay. Their flames scorched the water, turning it to steam. "Obey me!" Balin shouted. The dragons answered, but not with submission. Their roars shook the heavens, defiant and wild. Vhagar rose from her pit below, her ancient wings spreading wide. The sky erupted in fire as the four dragons met above the sea, their cries echoing for miles. The people of King's Landing fled to the streets, praying and weeping beneath the rain of ash. Alyssa found her brother upon the walls, his face lit by flame. "Balin!" she screamed. "Call them off!" He turned to her, anguish in his eyes. "I can't." The dragons clashed again, fire against fire, until the air itself seemed to scream. One by one, they vanished into the storm, their light fading beyond the horizon. The city lay in silence. When dawn came, Balin was gone. Only his cloak remained upon the battlement, scorched and blackened, a faint scent of smoke drifting from the folds. Alyssa stood there long after the sun had risen, her hair whipped by the wind. She looked east, toward the sea where the fire had fled. "He's not dead," she whispered. "He can't be." But no answer came, only the cry of a dragon somewhere beyond the clouds, distant and mournful, echoing like a farewell. And so it was said that Balon Targaryen, the Spring Prince, vanished into the storm with his dragons, neither dead nor living, but bound forever to the fire that birthed him. From that day, when lightning split the sky over Dragonstone, the small folk would cross themselves and say the prince still flew there, guarding the mountain's heart, waiting for the world to remember his name. For fire, as the Targaryens knew too well, never truly dies. It only changes form. Seasons turned. Years slipped by like whispers through the halls of memory. The story of Balon Targaryen became a legend before the ash had settled. In the taverns of Flea Bottom and the courts of noble houses, they told it differently each time. Some said the Spring Prince had perished in the storm that swallowed him. Others swore he yet lived, bound to the dragons that had followed him into the clouds. The truth was stranger. Far to the east, beyond the Blackwater and the islands of the Narrow Sea, the shadow of Dragonstone remained upon the horizon. The volcano's crown, broken and blackened, was still shrouded in smoke, though no fire had erupted in many years. Yet on still nights, sailors who passed too close claimed to see light deep within the mountain, flickering like a heartbeat. They said a man lived there, a man who spoke to dragons. Alyssa Targaryen had not forgotten her brother. Though her mother had grown frail and withdrawn, Alyssa's resolve hardened like tempered steel. Each year she sent ravens east. Each year she waited for word. None came. The maesters counseled patience. The court advised silence. But silence was not in her nature. One dawn, as mist coiled over the bay, she stood upon the same cliffs where Balon had last departed. The sea wind tugged her silver hair loose from its braids. Beside her crouched Silverwing, older now, her scales dulled with age but her spirit undimmed. Alyssa laid a hand upon the dragon's warm hide. "Once more, old friend," she whispered, "let us see if the fire yet remembers us." They took to the sky. The air was sharp and cold, the sea below a mirror of gray steel. Clouds gathered as they flew, and soon the island rose from the fog, black and immense. Dragonstone looked as it always had, half castle, half beast, carved from the bones of ancient dragons. But the mountain behind it had changed. The slopes, once scarred by lava, now gleamed as though glassed over by fire. They landed upon the windswept ridge. The stones still radiated faint warmth. Alyssa dismounted slowly, scanning the cliffs. Nothing moved save for the gulls that cried overhead. Then she saw them, marks scorched into the rock, the unmistakable imprint of dragon claws. Fresh. Her breath caught. "Balon," she whispered. The wind shifted. From deep within the mountain came a sound, faint but unmistakable. A rumble, long and low, like thunder beneath the earth. Silverwing stirred, her wings twitching. The air thickened with heat. Alyssa drew the Valyrian dagger she carried, though she knew it would do little against what dwelled here. "If you live," she murmured, "let me see you, brother. End this haunting." The tremor deepened. Cracks opened in the stone, bleeding red light. A column of smoke rose from the mountain's mouth, spreading across the sky. Silverwing roared, answering the call. And then, wings. They burst from the smoke like living shadows. 3 dragons, vast and terrible, their scales gleaming red, white, and black. Their cries shook the cliffs. Alyssa's heart thundered as she stared upward. Behind them came another shape, greater than all the rest. Vagar, ancient and mighty, gliding through the ash with wings broad enough to blot the sun. Upon her back sat a lone rider, clad in blackened armor, his silver hair streaming behind him like fire. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears. "Balon." He dismounted before her, his feet touching the scorched stone. His face was leaner, older, but his eyes burned the same molten gold she remembered. The heat radiating from him was near unbearable. "Sister," he said softly. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of flame. "You should not have come." Alyssa stepped forward, trembling. "Years, Balon. I've searched for you through years. The world believes you dead. "Perhaps I am," he said. "Or perhaps death has no hold on dragon's blood." She reached toward him, but the air between them shimmered with heat. "What have you done?" she asked. "The fire obeys you. The dragons, they are yours now." "They are no one's," Balin said. "Not even mine. I keep them from waking the world too soon." "Too soon?" "The fire dreams," he said. "It remembers what men forget. Empires rise and fall, but the blood remains. One day, another will come, born of our line, bearing both ice and flame. Then the dragons will wake again." Alyssa frowned, confusion and sorrow in her eyes. "You speak in riddles." Balin smiled faintly, the expression both gentle and haunting. "I speak of what is yet to come. I have seen it in the fire, but it is not my destiny to rule, Alyssa, only to guard." She shook her head. "You cannot stay here forever. The realm needs you." "The realm needs peace," he said, "and peace cannot live beside dragons. We are too dangerous to love, sister. You must know that by now." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then let me stay with you. I will not leave you to burn alone." His gaze softened, though the fire in it never dimmed. "You have your mother's courage," he said, "but you are of water and sky, not ash and stone. If you stay, you will fade." "I don't care," she whispered. He lifted a hand, scarred, glowing faintly with the same red sigils that had once marked the eggs. The air shimmered between them. "You must," he said, "because when the world forgets the dragons, someone must remember. Someone must tell our tale, not as a warning, but as truth." Alyssa stepped closer, though the heat scalded her skin. "What truth?" Balin looked toward the mountain, where the dragons circled, their cries echoing through the clouds. "That fire is not only destruction," he said. "It is memory. It is life. We are its keepers, Alyssa, and its prisoners." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled between them, scattering ash like falling snow. Then Balin turned to Vhagar and mounted once more. The dragons wheeled in the sky, forming a spiral of flame above the mountain. The light bathed the cliffs in red and gold. Alyssa called after him, "Balin, will I see you again?" His answer came on the wind, soft but clear. "When the dragons wake, you will know. Until then, remember me kindly and tell the realm that fire sleeps, not dies." Vhagar roared, and the others answered. The storm of wings rose higher, circling once before diving into the mountain's heart. The light grew blinding, then faded into the earth, leaving only silence. When it was over, the smoke thinned. The mountain's fire had quieted once more. Alyssa stood alone upon the cliffs, the sea wind cooling the tears upon her cheeks. Silverwing crooned softly beside her, lowering her great head. Alyssa laid a trembling hand upon her dragon's snout. "He lives," she whispered. "He guards the fire still." As she mounted and turned toward the mainland, dawn broke over the sea, pale and soft. The first sunlight touched Dragonstone's black peak, making it glimmer like a crown. And though the mountain seemed still, deep within its heart came a faint, rhythmic sound, slow, steady, eternal, a heartbeat. The fire slept. But one day, as Balin had foreseen, it would wake again, when another of his blood called it forth. For dragons do not die. They wait